Ah, 3 years ago, that was the life. Not a care in the world, no zoning board issues, just JD, a couple implements. But now we're back to reality, back to the present time. Just to settle a little controversy over here by our creek area. So we had a lot of comments about what that little critter was that was crawling out of our drain pipe. We got suggestions like a weasel, a muskrat, which I think we could rule out, fisher, and minks seem to be the overwhelming majority of the people that left comments. But I gotta go with minks on this one. But let's get you up to speed on what's going on with the shed. I'll go meet you over there. Well, it's the end of March and we've got a few teaser 60-degree days here and there, and now we're kind of back to winter. We got mid-20s today, so it's a little chilly out here. But let me get you up to speed on what's going on with this shed. I think we're going to see the final chapter here. So I mentioned Plan B last week, and maybe I should really elaborate a little bit more and say that this is probably Plan C. Plan A would have been trying to get the variance to keep the shed. Plan B is appealing the variance, which we already did and we got shot down. And now we're to Plan C. So what exactly is Plan C? Well, back in June, we started doing a little research and we were looking into agricultural exempt buildings. And just what is an agricultural exempt building? Well, most townships and local municipalities go by the Ohio Revised Code. And in the Ohio Revised Code, it basically says if you have a building that's used for agricultural purposes, it is not subject to zoning laws in your township or municipality. Now, what are agricultural purposes? And that was the hard part that we had to try to get defined. In the Ohio Revised Code, it is kind of leaves you with a lot of gray areas. So it mentions if you're using it for farming, if your property is being used to harvest a crop, and you have to have a certain percentage of your property being used to grow and harvest that crop. We certainly have a garden over here, but the percentage of the size of that garden versus our property just wouldn't fly. A few other things is if you raise horses or fur-bearing animals, that's mentioned in there. And then there was a part that mentioned poultry husbandry. So what exactly is that? We take it to if you raise chickens. Well, we happen to have some chickens. We've been trying to figure out exactly what does all that mean. If we raise chickens, does that mean the chickens have to reside in the shed? Can they be next to the shed? Can we just have the feed inside the shed and some of the tools? Plus we also have the tractor and the implements, which are kind of considered agricultural equipment. A lot of these things were like a gray area for us to figure out. Even the attorney wasn't exactly sure. We actually called the township and asked them. There was a form on the web page for our township for filling out and getting an agricultural exempt building certified. And when we inquired about that form at the time, someone at the zoning board we spoke to said that that form has not been deemed useful by the prosecutor's office of our county, saying that something was wrong constitutionally with it and that the township should not be using it. So let me just go into some of the particulars about the Ohio Revised Code, what we were looking at. And a lot of these same things are similar in other states. So if you're in the same boat that I am, or if you're looking at building a building, this might be helpful to you. County/township zoning authority cannot prohibit the use of land for agricultural purposes, or prohibit construction or use of buildings incident to the use of agricultural purposes on which such buildings are located. No zoning certificate shall be required for any such building or structure. And then it goes further into agricultural, animal husbandry, care and raising of livestock, care and raising of horses, farming, ranching. Then if you delve down, it goes into poultry husbandry, production of poultry production. So this is our plan C. We used to have our chicken coop across the way here, even though prior to that we had them incorporated with the shed way before all these troubles started. And if you watched the previous video, you know why we moved and shuffled things around. We store our feed here in the shed. We have cleaning tools. So prepping to move the chickens from our old coop into the shed was a little bit of an undertaking. I commandeered the back part where there was a nice shelf, walled that off, made an area for them, a little perch in there. I put some windows in the back part so we have some sunlight coming in. Made them a little door with an automatic door opener, opens and closes for them in the evening. Got a little nesting box for their eggs area, and make a little bit better access for getting in and out of the garden. Put some swinging doors in here, and maybe work on an automatic feeding system for us, because we are looking at traveling in the RV, and we want to try to set up a system where maybe 4 or 5 days at a time they can be on their own with water and food, and just have somebody check on them every 5 days or so. So a good portion of the shed is used for raising chickens. We took one of the overhangs here, and this overhang is a protective run, keeps them out of the direct sunlight, and it's able to keep critters away from them. And then they have the larger run area, which is wider open, that they can scavenge and forage for food other than the feed that we provide for them. So we worked on making all these changes, and then we went back on the Township's website, and their form has been changed now. And the form was pretty basic. Basically, it just says what the size of the structure you're talking about, what's it being used for. So in our case, we're raising chickens. So you need to just fill out that basic information, sign it, get it notarized, and we sent it in. A couple days later, I got a call back from the Township. A gentleman wanted to come out and take pictures of our shed with the chickens in there. So he came out. So he took a couple pictures of the area, the run area where the chickens reside, the inside of the shed, and he said that he would get back to us within a week, that they would have a meeting with other zoning board officials, discuss it, and then either approve it or disapprove it. A couple days later, he calls me back and says, hey, I did something with the camera and I lost all the pictures. Can I come out again and retake the pictures? Nobody was home at the time. I said, go ahead. We'll leave the shed open. You can take your pictures and let me know. So at that time, he took more pictures. They must have had a little discussion prior to him coming out, since he was out here earlier and lost those pictures. And he left the certificate with his signature on there. So I'm assuming we are good to go. Now, what does that mean in the future forward? Well, we have to call the county now, because since this is deemed an agricultural exempt, we can also get a discount on our taxes on this building. We will have to keep the chickens in here as long as we want to keep it agricultural exempt. Now, in hindsight, we probably could have saved some money if we just would have went to this route first. But we wanted to go the other route by appealing it, getting an attorney, just because we wanted to have the freedom, if we just didn't want to have chickens anymore, that this building would still stand. And we tried to make lemonade out of lemons. So we're looking at this as maybe a good thing in the long run, because now the chickens are a little bit more protected. When we feed and clean their coop, we're actually out of the weather, and it's probably a little bit better for them. It's a little bit safer. This run area is a little bit safer. We have a nice hawk that's residing up in the trees just behind the pole barn here, and they got a nice bird's eye view of the old coop and run area, so we can get them a little bit more protective. And then we can have them rummage through the garden area when we're not using it. So 8 or 9 months out of the year, they get free run of the garden area. They can fertilize it for us. They could scratch all the soil. They could pick all the weeds and pick it clean, just like they did in their little run area next door. When they first moved into there, that had some pretty tall weeds, and it was covered in greenery. And within a couple weeks, they had scavenged everything, and it was just bare black dirt. So now they've got free run of the garden. This spring, when we go ahead and we plant some of our tomatoes and our little crops in there, we could wall that section off temporarily, grow our garden, harvest our food. Come late August, early September, let them rummage through that area again, clean it up for us, and get it ready again for next year. All in all, it'll be a good situation. Across the way, where we used to have the chickens in that run area, well, we're going to start removing that run area, dismantling that run area, taking it down. I'm going to put that coop up for sale, and maybe we'll recoup on some of the lumber I had to buy to make their coop back here. So it'll either be a wash, or maybe we'll be a little bit ahead. We won't need that area. I'm also going to take down that roof, and I might be able to recycle that as protection for our new RV to keep that out of the weather. So we're always trying to look how to take a bad situation and make it better. Always having that plan A, B, C, and D. And then once we got that whole area cleared out, I'll probably just prep it and plant some grass there. It'll give us a little bit more maneuvering room when it comes to trailers and the tractor. So it'll give us a little bit more room along the side of the driveway and maybe just a better situation overall. Now after this whole ordeal, and I'm trying to look back at it and thinking, are there lessons learned here? And boy, I am very tied on if there's lessons learned here. Some people might say, well, if I would have got a variance or tried to build this in the first place the proper way and getting permits, I wouldn't have these issues. But if I might have tried that way back when, I might not have been able to build anything here or have this shed for the last 20 years. They might have just disallowed it and that would have been it, and I'd be hard up for storage and I'd be a little bit bitter about it. So when I look back at almost the last 2 years of trying to get this pole barn up and then this shed getting thrown into the mix, it's cost quite a bit more than I anticipated. Just for the variance applications, it was $1,000. Of course, appealing this decision was probably close to $9,000 or $10,000, which is probably more than what this shed might be worth, but we had to try it. When I look back at things, and you decide in your own community and township how you want to operate, maybe this is not what I should be saying or what people want to hear, but if I would have never said a word and just built a pole barn back there, I don't think anything would have happened. I would have saved a lot of money, and even the price of the pole barn changed while I'm waiting for all this stuff to be taken care of, because we had to delay it almost 8 months, and the price of the pole barn went up a couple grand just in materials. So I'm just a little bitter about the whole situation. You may not want to take advice from me about that, and just use your best judgment when it comes to your own township or municipality. Now, one other thing I'm bitter about is the zoning board itself. And basically, when I would have a question and I would call them with 5 questions, and then I would hang up or leave there with 10. And to me, they just were not the most helpful of folks. Really, none of this had to go this route. This all could have been solved with a little helpfulness from the zoning board itself. And I'll give you an example. I've mentioned that I was on the fire department and I just recently retired. Well, on the fire department, I was a fire inspector, and I would go out and do company inspections in my district. Now, I'm proficient in all the fire codes, and I'd probably know them much, much better than most business owners do out there. So to me, it's my job to also inform and educate and help out as much as I can, because I have a greater knowledge on fire codes than they do. And I would try to take information from them and give them information also. So let's say a business changed their hours and they used to close at 9 o'clock at night, and now they're going to close at 4 o'clock. Well, they may not need to maintain emergency lighting anymore because they're not open when it gets dark. And there's just a multitude of things. Maybe their occupancy changed and they just don't need to maintain 3 or 4 fire extinguishers. They can get by with just 1 or 2. So helpful information like that. I still enforce the codes and try to keep things safe. And I would always do my best to help out the business owner to save them money whenever possible. And this is one case where I think the zoning board could have helped me out. We had discussions that I did have chickens. We talked about our chickens and their little quirks and stuff like that. And right away, they could have just said to me, look, you can't have this shed. It was built in front of your house, and that's against our zoning laws here. But did you ever consider maybe moving your chickens into the shed and making it agricultural exempt, and then you could keep the shed? They never mentioned that once, never brought it up. And that's where I'm very bitter, because those civil servants should be here to help the community and not hinder it. And that's my little soapbox, but that's probably where I'm most bitter about this whole process, is it didn't have to be this way, it didn't have to be dragged out this long, and it didn't have to cost me this much money. So now we know that it's going to stay here. There's a lot of little projects that have been put on hold while we were waiting on the fate of this shed. So I can start cleaning up the area around here and preparing to plant grass in the back part near the pole barn. Get my side parking area over here for my trailer to park for the tractor. We might prep for some concrete up front. A lot of little projects now that we can move forward now that this obstacle is out of our way. So I appreciate everybody sticking with us while we're going through this ordeal. Your comments were very helpful and supportive, and hopefully this is all behind us now. I hope you enjoy these videos. Subscribe and hit that little bell if you want to know when a new one is coming out. Don't forget to hit the like button too, and keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody. So here at Butt Nugget Farms, we try to put quality and craftsmanship in every egg that we manufacture. Each employee is considered a valuable member of our team where they can earn competitive wages, benefits, and security to give them a long and prosperous career. So the next time you're in search of a butt nugget, consider Butt Nugget Farms. Warning: butt nuggets should be used for consumption only and not used as projectiles as revenge against zoning board members.